Good evening, everybody. My name is Michael Scott Forehand. I'm a senior underwriter and agency director here at Symmetry Financial Group, part of Quility. And tonight we're here to talk about the Debt-Free Life program and what it is and how it works. So welcome. If you whoever invited you here, get back with them after this conversation. And if you have an interest in executing a DFL program, fantastic. If you are looking at the DFL program here for your own use, great. A little bit later on, we'll have a quick Q&A session. You'll be able to ask any questions that you want. And then at the end of this, one of our special guests has chosen the advanced topic for today, and it's going to be taxes and how you roll your taxes or how you can capture your taxes in the Debt-Free Life program and how to use it. So let's go ahead and get going. So what is Debt-Free Life? Debt-Free Life is a proprietary system that's been developed by Symmetry Financial Group. This is a new take on an old concept that's been around for over 100 years. This is a program that the wealthiest segment of the population have been doing since the early 20th century. And it's not anything new. It's just now the vehicles and the programs that we use to execute this are different. And they are different in the manner that these have fewer chances to fail. The programs that were before us, that came before us, had much more frequent failure rates, and they were a little bit, in many cases, a little bit more difficult to comprehend how to work them and how to utilize them. So moving on, Debt-Free Life, play on words. Debt, we're using debt to have a debt-free life. We're turning debt on itself. We're changing the argument. We're going to use debt as a vehicle to get us to debt-free. And then finally, using that debt and the debt-free vehicle, we're going to use for a very nice retirement where we don't have to guess whether or not we're going to have enough money for retirement. We don't have to guess how much money we're going to have at retirement, and we are able to control it. So moving on. So these are the two primary questions that we ask when we're looking at potentials for people that might be able to qualify for a Debt-Free Life program. Are you 100% sure that you're going to have a great retirement? Which I don't know anybody that can answer that question. Yes. And if I could show you a way to get out of debt in 9 years or less, including your mortgage, without spending any more money than you are today, would you be interested in listening? And of course, I don't know anybody who says no. So the idea here is these are two standard questions, but they're really poignant and important for what we do with Debt-Free Life programs, because they're both real. And what we can do with the DFL program is going to solve, or at least give us an affirmative answer to these two questions. So Debt-Free Life program looks at Americans in general. And this is the standard American household income, how it's broken up across the board. About 34% of every dollar, 34 cents of every dollar we make is spent on interest. About 40 cents of every dollar we spend is spent on taxes. And then the last little sliver up there, 3%, that's what we actually save for retirement. And then that 23% is what we live on. That's what we pay our mortgage payments with, and we pay our car payments with, and put gas in the car and food on the table and keep the power bills on and pay our Hulu bill. So this is not the way that our founding fathers had this country planned. This is not the way it was supposed to be. And it's really gotten out of hand. And if you were here earlier and you saw the U.S. national debt clock that I had up there, we're almost at 29 trillion. We've almost grown $1 trillion this year. And certainly if our federal government has any result of or gets their way, we're going to be way over 29 trillion. Anyway, so the idea here is we want to fix things. We want to change the way you're spending money. And that's really what Debt-Free Life is. It's not that you need to go out and make more money. It's just we want to change the way you spend it and put you in a situation where you're going to spend it more efficiently. So one of the biggest problems we have as Americans is that we don't save enough money for retirement. And we all make a lot of money. The average American makes about $2 million in their lifetime. That's a significant amount of money. And if the money is used properly, spent properly, and in many cases saved properly, it's plenty of money to have a great retirement. And you won't have to worry about whether or not the federal government is going to be able to pay for your retirement. I heard today that they're having a 24% increase just in the cost for Medicare. And they're not giving them the people that are on those programs, they're not giving them a 24% increase in income if they're on Social Security. So it's getting out of hand. It's going to continue on this track until something changes. And I, for one, do not want to wait for the federal government to try to fix it for me. And I don't want to wait for the state governments to do that either, because they've all demonstrated one thing to me, which is they're all incompetent and they have no desire to fix the problem that's staring everybody in the face. So the point here is that one of the things we can do with the Debt-Free Life program is we can fix retirement. If anybody thinks that if you've made that much money in your life and you're the average American where you've saved 3%, which is $60,000 for retirement, how long is $60,000 going to last? Really? Okay. So I know that I'm not in a situation where I can retire yet. And I know that I'm using a Debt-Free Life program to get to where I want to be quickly. And some of the techniques that I'm doing with my own personal Debt-Free Life program, I'm going to teach you. And hopefully you get an opportunity to get with whoever invited you here and you get one of these programs put in place for you. Moving on. The traditional approach, when we start looking at debts, because most Americans are saddled with way too much debt. The traditional approach, when you talk to someone who's a debt counselor, they're going to give you these 6 bullet points: work harder, spend less, save more money, go refinance your debt, consolidate your debt, do a debt snowball. Of all those things, only one of them is tenable. Only one of them is something that's gonna work almost all the time, and that's going to be that debt snowball. You can only eat ramen and tuna fish for so long. You can only have a second job for so long. You can only, turn off your TV and turn off your phone and all those other things you can do to cut corners for so long. You still have to live your life. So our proposition with the Debt-Free Life program is different. We don't want you to do that. We don't want you to spend less money. We don't want you to go out and refinance or consolidate your debt. We want you to follow the system, which doesn't cost you to spend any more money than you're spending right now. Let's move on. So this is that, again, back to that one question. If we can show you a way to do it in 9 years or less, I want to talk about that for just a second. I've done so many of these programs that 9 years or less statement, it's pretty accurate, but it's actually better than that. And what I'm actually seeing for the most part is people that run these programs, that utilize these programs, as long as they follow it, they're getting out of debt 15 to 27 years earlier than where they were before. And 9 years or less is great, but if I can get out of debt 27 years early, I'm going to be on beating that drum, and that's where I want to go. And we'll show some case studies here a little bit later to demonstrate what I'm talking about here. So where you are right now, if you're like most Americans, you're on the left side of the screen. You make good money, you've got debt, you're paying a lot out in taxes and interest, you're not saving enough for retirement, and then what's left together, what's left, that 23%, that's what you're living on and paying your bills with and all that stuff. And it's not good and it's not fun. And most people, debt or money and the lack of money, which is debt, is the number one cause of mental illness in this country right now. So we can do something to fix that. And that's actually what Symmetry is all about. If you've heard, there's a gentleman named Mike Resma, who's part of our family here at Symmetry and Quility, and he's banging the drum. And we have a Symmetry corporate goal to eliminate $1 trillion of consumer debt. And I think we're going to do it. Anyway, the goal here is to get you from the left side of the screen to the right side of the screen. We want to put you in a situation where we're going to save 25% of the money that you're currently spending on taxes. We want to get you to the point where you're having an additional 40% of usable cash flow. That's that lifestyle money, changing it from 23% of your dollar to 33% of your dollar. And we want to save you a ton of interest, but more importantly, we want to get you to that point where you're saving 15% of your income. Doesn't sound like much, but if you look at what most average Americans have at $60,000 versus what we're going to do, we're going to have a 500% increase in what you're going to have for retirement. And that's our goal. This is what this is all about. This is about changing the way you spend money getting you to that point where you don't have to worry about or guess or wonder whether or not taxes are going up, and if you're going to be receiving less and less of your 401k over time because you're paying out more and more for taxes, which is probably where you're headed. Sorry to be the bearer of bad news. Or maybe you can tell the IRS to go pound sand and put your money in a program that they can't touch, can't tax, and can't tell you when you can and can't use it. Welcome to Debt-Free Life. So how do we do it? The way we do it is by using your money in a way that you get to reuse it. We call it dollar cycling. We're going to reduce the interest you pay to your lenders over time, reduce your taxes, improve your cash flow. This is a critical piece here. We know that if our program causes you to have to tighten the belt, you're probably not going to do it. And then most importantly of all these things here, we're gonna put you in a situation to retire with a tax favored income. And from my perspective, there is no more tax favored income than a zero tax income. And that's what I love. And we'll show you how that works too here in just a minute. So one of the key reasons why all those programs that have been with us in the past have failed is because they didn't plan for the unexpected. There's one company out there, he's very big into teaching these programs how to get out of debt, and he works with a lot of churches. And the main problem with his program is that he relies on 12 years of regular positive returns from the stock market to be able to do this. And I would challenge any of you to go find any 12-year run where the stock market has had a positive growth every year, 12 years in a row. And I haven't found one. And I don't know that it exists. So the big problem here is and another one of those programs out there requires that you have a 15 or a 20-year run where you don't have any issues with your income level. You don't ever lose your job. We don't ever have a pandemic. Aha. You don't ever have to change jobs. Your company doesn't ever get bought out. You don't ever have to switch careers. All those things that happen to you when you're 20, 30, 40 years old, 50 years old, it's going to happen to you. So those programs fail because they have unrealistic expectations. So what we do here is we put a program in place where those unexpected things that happen, those problems that happen, we got you covered. So when we look at the growth of these programs and the cash value that these programs grow over time, which is that long-term growth, that's only about 80% of the value that's in the program. So there's a 20% value that's hidden. It's an emergency fund, but it's really an emergency fund. This is not that I need a brand new jet ski emergency. This is, holy cow, I have to take 2 months off from work because my XYZ family member needs me to come take care of them or whatever, something that's really an emergency. We have that covered. And that's a key difference. That's why the majority of those other programs that are out there have failed in the past. So we talk about different types of investment. I mentioned just a second ago that I like tax-free retirement. And when we're talking about different types of retirement, what's the best one that you can have? And for me, it's a tax-free retirement. So we put this program up and compared the numbers using the same metrics, a same interest rate of growth, a same period of time, a same tax rate, and a same initial investment. And you see those on the left side of your screen right now. We put this program in place, comparing it to working in a savings account, working in a tax-deferred account like a 401k, 403b, TSP, FERS, KEO, SEP, whatever, or using a truly tax-free growth strategy, which is what this is. And the numbers, you can't make it up. The numbers don't lie. No matter what, no matter how you look at it, if you use a tax-deferred strategy, 401, then you're banking on some market growth, which means you're also subject to market loss, which means you're looking at market oscillation, up and down and up and down. And while you never really lose any money or make any money until you take the money out of the program, the reality is if you go up 5% one year and down 5% the next year, your net gain is zero. Where in our program, we capture the gain every time there's a gain. And our gain has guaranteed gains. The guaranteed gain we're doing right this minute for another 40 days until the end of this year is about 4%. Now, the taxed version, that's where you've paid the tax on the money and you put it into an interest earning account like a savings account. And that's what you end up with. So there is no way that you can run these numbers if you look at historical rates of growth in invested monies, that you're going to come out with a higher number than a tax-free growth account, which is what this represents. Let's move on. So this, like all financial instruments, works in phases. Every financial instrument starts with the maximization phase. That's where you're building up to where you're reaching your maximum funding level. And the way that we do that is by getting rid of your debt. Because if you've got no debt, then you've got more money that you can spend on your retirement. And that's what this is all about. This is about eliminating your debt as quickly as possible so we can get you to that critical mass, to that maximum rate of where you're putting money into the program and growing. The second phase of all financial instruments is the accumulation phase. That's the period of time from where you've reached maximization to the point where you're ready to start taking the money. And our goal is to get you to that accumulation phase as quickly as possible. And then finally, the distribution phase. This is that phase where every purchase is an emergency purchase. I need to take that trip to Tahiti. I need to take that new motorcycle out for a ride, or whatever it is. This is the distribution phase. It's your money. Take it when you want it. And one of the key things here that I want to make sure you guys understand is when we're looking at traditional finance and traditional retirement instruments like a 401, like a TSP, like a FERS, there's some IRS regulation and baggage that go along with those programs. Specifically, they dictate when you can touch the money. They dictate when you have to touch the money. They tax you when you have to touch the money. Whether you take the money or not, they're still taxing you. So these programs and these restrictions make it very difficult in many cases for you to get to your money. Sure, you can go in an emergency, get access to it, but you're still going to have a penalty. You're going to have to pay it back. So the idea here with these programs, because of the way we touch the money, access the money, and use the money, we are not subject to IRS regulation, with a couple of key points that we have to be careful of, but we'll talk about that later. But the main gist here that I want you to get is we don't have to pay tax when we pull the money out. We don't have to wait until we're retired to touch the money. We are not forced to pull the money at age 72 and a half. There is no such thing as a required mandatory distribution. Okay. And what I do with the money is up to me. This is a private bank, which what we're doing is we're creating a private bank. And that private bank, I'm the banker. I make the decision whether or not I want to lend myself the money. All right, so let's move on. Like I said, this program has been around. The Debt-Free Life program is proprietary to 2019 when it came out, when Symmetry introduced it. But the concept of using compounded interest in life insurance vehicles has been around for a long time. The Rockefellers did it. The Rothschilds did it. Warren Buffett does it to this day. Walt Disney did it when he was building Walt Disney World and Walt Disneyland. Ray Kroc did it for his first 11 units of McDonald's. Doris Christopher did it to build the Pampered Chef. The concept is not new. It's just the vehicles that are available are new. And the ones that that were available to the wealthiest segment of the population previously, you had to have a substantial net worth and a substantial amount of money to get those started. You don't have to anymore as of March of 2019. Welcome to Debt-Free Life. So all we're doing is doing something that they've already thought of, that they've already used, that they've already executed, and they've already proven works. But then we take it a step further. We're using two key financial concepts here. Okay. There's a concept of using perpetual money, which is that private bank that we're talking about. And also that concept of a debt snowball. If you remember a few slides ago, we talked about there were 6 different things that a debt counselor is going to instruct you to do to get out of debt. And one of them was a debt snowball. And we're going to talk about that, but that absolutely is part and parcel to what we do. That debt snowball coupled with a financial instrument like a perpetual bank, those two pieces, when they work in concert with each other, are definitely greater than the sum of their parts. It's going to create a better return, a better result, more money than either one of them would do just by themselves. Okay, it's phenomenal how the thing works. We'll show you in just a sec. So one of the key things, all these are important, all these are real, all these are truthful, but I'm going to tell you at its core, just like I said in the very beginning, what this is all about is about getting you to realize that you're spending money inefficiently and showing you a clear path on how to spend it efficiently. Okay, that's what this is all about. So when Symmetry first started and first offered these programs, those were some of the first 3 families that we actually worked on. The amount of debt that was eliminated with them is pretty strong. Okay, and we're still seeing those kinds of numbers. Actually, I'm seeing much larger numbers than that. I'm seeing hundreds of thousands of dollars of debt that's being eliminated quickly. The fact that we eliminate that debt quickly puts us in a situation where we are able to capture more for our retirement. And that's what this is, headed towards. So let's talk about how you spend money right now. When you make money, whether you work a job, which stands for just over broke, or whether you work or a 1099, or maybe you're a W-2, W-4, and you get a mix, doesn't really matter. But when you work the job, ultimately, at some point, you're going to get paid. And the way you get paid comes in the form of income. Maybe it's direct deposit. Maybe they write you a check. Don't know. But ultimately, you deposit your money into your current bank, whether it's Wells Fargo, Bank of America, Citibank, whoever, doesn't matter. So you put the money in the bank, and then your money that you made is sitting in that bank. And that bank lends your money out every night for at least 7 nights. The average dollar that you put in your bank account is lent out 7 times by your bank before you actually get to use it. And more importantly, why are they lending it out? Because they make money with it. So that's how banks make money. They lend other people's money. It's great. It's a great scam. I'm going to make money using your money. What am I going to do for that? Well, because you put your money in my bank account, I'm not going to charge you a fee for me to hold your money and use your money. Right? It's certainly not fair. So the idea is the bank makes money with your money every night, and eventually you get to the point where you have to pay a bill. And let's say you're paying a car payment. So then you tell your bank, because you go into your bill pay system, or maybe you stroke a paper check if you're still writing those, and you tell the bank, hey, pay my lender for my car payment. And then all of a sudden, your money becomes their money. And that money is gone forever, and you will never see it again. And if you are super nice and super sweet and you call up and beg and plead, they're still not going to give it back to you. Your money is gone forever. This is an inefficient way to spend money, because you're putting money in a place where you're not making anything with it, and you're using your dollar one time. This is the debt-free life method. Same deal. You still work your job, still get paid. Same process. You make your income, gets deposited. Same bank, goes into your bank. Here's where the difference hits. What we do at this point is, instead of leaving the money in our regular bank, our brick and mortar bank, we take the money and we pay a life insurance premium. Don't forget, this whole process is based on life insurance, and there's a reason why, and that's because of an IRS tax code that we take advantage of. But the whole process is based on a life insurance. So let's say I make a life insurance premium payment for my whole life policy. This is a very special kind of whole life. This is called participating whole life, which means the money that you put into the program, the carrier is going to take your money and make money with it. And you're going to get to participate with their profits because you have a participating whole life. That means they're going to give you cash. You're going to make money with your money, right? So the next thing is that money got split into 3 parts. Okay. The reason why it got split into 3 parts is important, because we're using this as a private bank mechanism. So in order to create that private bank, we have to follow the IRS rules about what the difference between a life insurance policy and a contract, an investment contract is, okay, or an endowment contract. So in this case, We buy the life insurance in the form of whole life. We have two riders that are added onto that whole life policy, a term life rider and a paid up addition rider. The term life rider is the smallest amount of money that we're spending of our premium payment, but it's actually the largest effect because it creates a massive amount of additional life insurance. That massive amount of additional life insurance creates an umbrella over that whole life policy. So when the IRS comes snooping around and they start trying to look, all they see is that term life umbrella. And that term life umbrella, it's usually going to be somewhere between 9 and 10 times whatever your whole life policy is. This number is important because IRS tax code 7702A says two key things. First off, it says money derived from a life insurance policy is tax exempt. That's great. And the second thing it says, this is really important, it says, if the cash value of a life insurance policy exceeds the life insurance value of the life insurance policy, then that life insurance policy is no longer life insurance. It's what's called a modified endowment contract. And at that point, the policy, the whole thing, the game is over and the whole thing becomes taxable. So that's why that term life rider is in there. Term life rider typically is going to occupy about 11% of whatever your premium payment is. The whole life component is going to be about 21%, which that's 32% between the term and the whole life. And then inside that whole life policy, every time you make a premium, there's actually cash. You're making a premium for more than what you need to pay for the life insurance coverage. So the whole life policy, core policy, is building a cash value by itself. And that leads us to the largest portion. The largest portion of your premium is going to be a paid up addition. That paid up addition is paid up additional life insurance. Okay, so let me explain to you what that means. Right now, the largest investment for tier one investments for every bank in the country is bank-owned life insurance. And there's companies out there that are buying up people's life insurance policies left and right. And the reason why is because those policies have zero risk, especially in this case, like a paid up life insurance. So paid up life insurance means I've made my premium payment. I have to do it one time and that's it. I never have to make another premium payment again the rest of my life. And that policy is the paid up additional life insurance. It has permanent value until I die. It has permanent value. So the carrier knows that, and the carrier uses that because once you make that premium payment, the carrier is not going to receive any more money for that. But the carrier takes that money until you die and they invest it. This, from the carrier's perspective, is considered a cash investment. So what that means is, as a cash investment, you're getting to use your money over and over again. Remember I told you that whole life builds some cash value? The paid up addition builds cash value, and the carrier is going to pay you a guaranteed interest rate. So you've just created a private bank. You created a private bank in the form of a life insurance policy that you own and you control. All the money that you put up into your private bank stays there forever. You never pull out the principal. You can take money out anytime you want, but you never pull out the principal. So now let's move forward. So where you were before, you would now, the money would be sitting in there and finally you'd say, okay, it's time to pay my car payment. Okay, so in this scenario, let's say it's time to pay off a house. Okay, so how do you do that? So what you do is you tell the carrier, hey carrier, I want to borrow some money from myself. Okay, I'm agreeing that I'm going to lend myself money and I'm going to charge myself whatever I want to charge myself as an interest rate. For me, I charge myself 0. I like 0. Okay. So I'm charging 0%. The carrier is going to charge 4.76%. But wait a minute. Remember, I said the money coming into this program is getting a guaranteed interest rate 4 right now till the end of December, 4%. So right now I'm earning 4% on every penny I have in my program. I'm being charged 4.76% for what I borrow, but guess what? I can't borrow 100% of the money in my program. I can only touch about 90 or 95%. And so what that means is that 90 or 95%, I'm going to be earning 4%. It should be about a wash. The interest I have to pay should equal about the interest that I'm earning. So it should be 0, but it's not over there because the carrier participating whole life, right? As a participating whole life carrier, they also pay a dividend. These companies that we use are mutual companies. And as a mutual company, they have to pay back a portion of their profits to the shareholders. As a life insurance policy holder with the carrier, you are a shareholder and you get to exercise your shareholder right and collect a dividend. What you do with that dividend is up to you. Maybe you use it to pay down the loan you just took. Maybe you look at to buy more paid up additional life insurance. It's up to you. And there's a logical reason why you're going to do that. And that's an advanced stuff that we're not going to talk about today. But the bottom line is you've got the money. It's in your program. It's time to pay off your house. So you take $10,000 because it's your last couple payments. And you say, hey, Mr. Carrier, deposit $10,000 into my checking account. And the carrier does it. And then all of a sudden, you've taken a loan from your carrier and you tell you it goes into your checking account and you tell your bank to go ahead and pay your debt. And that money gets transmitted to your lender. And now, boom, the $10,000 is paid. So this is where doing it the way you were taught and the way you do it right now, which is an inefficient way to spend money where you're spending each dollar only once. In this case, I just captured and sequestered that money for the rest of my life. And I'm going to use that dollar over and over and over again. And so let me ask you this. If I traded $1,000 in my current checking account and paid off $1,000 in debt, what's my gain? Zero. I've traded $1,000 of cash or equity for $1,000 of reduced debt. The end result is zero. What happens if I put $1,000 into my private bank and borrow $1,000 and pay my debt? What's my gain? So I've paid off $1,000 of debt. That's gone. I've added $1,000 into my debt-free life bank. I didn't pull that. It's still there. I have a net gain of 100%. Yes, I still have a loan, right? But the loan, depending on how I do it, it might get paid off it's going to get paid off. It's going to get paid off automatically when I die. It's going to get paid off over time with the dividends. Either way, I've got $1,000 here. I've got $1,000 debt that's paid off. I have a net 100% gain. Let that sink in for a second. All right, let's move on. So all this is great and it's nice to talk about it and it's nice to see how the money flows, but how does it work? There you go. I just met with this family last week. This is their 2-year anniversary, and they are exactly on track of where we thought they would be. This family had a lot of debts. It was a family that had the husband and the wife had both been married before. They both had houses. The wife was a doctoral, getting her doctorate. The husband is a truck driver and owns a big rig and now owns a couple of big rigs and owns a trucking company. But the point is that they had a lot of debts, including some old taxes and stuff like that. When we looked at the debts that they had, of which a large portion was student loans are evil. And the student loans were building. And of course, they were deferment, which means they're not paying on them. They're just gaining more and more and more. It was going to be 40 years at their current rate of paying off their income, of paying off their debt before they were debt free. And when we look at that and look at the interest they're going to pay over time, their true debt was not $585,000, it's $767,000. And that's because of all the interest they were going to pay. So we ran the numbers into our system, looked at the absolute best order to pay off those debts, and came up with this solution. Got them out of debt in 7.8 years. Just for everybody who's keeping score, it's 5.8 more years away. And they're going to be completely out of debt. So they're not making any more money. Actually, they are. They're making more money than they were before, but they're not paying any more money than they were before. All we're doing is spending money more efficiently rather than them spending that extra $50, $100, $200, $300 to pay off a charge card every month. They're putting that money into their private bank and they're capturing that money every month and moving on. So the order that they were going to pay this off, this is the software that tells us the order, and the software that tells us the order, it's not wrong. There's only one best way. There's only one best order to pay this off. And there are There are hundreds and hundreds, actually in this case, thousands of permutations where you could pay off the Virginia state taxes first and then pay off the Navy Federal car loan second. There's different ways you could do this, but there's only one best way, and the system tells us, and this is the best way for this family. So in doing it this way, we saved that family $70,000 in interest, which is great, right? I like that. But look at that bottom number. It wasn't just that we saved them $70,000 in interest. What it is that we took them to a point where they were going to be 40 years down the road, and the only thing they were going to have for retirement was going to be two houses that were fully paid off, that equity in two houses. So now with this program, in the same 40-year run, not only do they have their two houses with full 100% equity, they've also got $4.8 million of liquid cash in their program. And even more, they have an additional life insurance policy that's fully paid up. Now, look, this is not your typical family. These folks make a lot of money. And this program was $32,000 a year for them, but it worked, and it's working. So where we go from here, each one of these yellow lines here, this is a year in which case something has been paid off. And what we talked about previously here, in that first year, they paid off 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 debts in that first year. And in that second year, where we are right now, they just paid off their first car. So all they've got left is a student loan, their two houses, and one car. It's worked exactly the way that it was supposed to work. So here's something else I want to tell you. The gentleman that we wrote this policy on said that he wanted to retire at age 75. Okay. So we ran the numbers to age 75. There he is, retiring at age 75. At age 75, he's going to have $4.8 million in cash. I think probably anybody could retire with $4.8 million of cash in the program. But what we did with this program is we made it so he could actually retire at age 55, because at age 55, he's got $1.5 million liquid cash in the program. I don't know many people out there that couldn't retire on $1.5 million liquid cash. That should generate somewhere around $75,000 a year. And if that $75,000 a year was coming from a taxed program, then that means you would net probably around 40. But because this is coming from a tax exempt program, that means that $75,000, they're netting $75,000. And that means that $75,000, if it was a tax program, that would be the equivalent of them making around $110,000 a year. Let's move on. So you say to yourself, well, look, Scott, I don't have a house. I don't have a lot of debts. I've just got a couple things. I'm just getting started. Okay. This is you. This is a woman that I just met with her last week as well. She's 2 years into her program. She has officially graduated from Cal Poly. She's got her master's degree in marine science, and she's on to her next program and getting her doctorate now. When we did this program for her, these were her debts. She had a lot of student loans. She had a car payment. She had some vet bills and a hospital bill, and that's it. So she's a student. As a student, she was working a job as a server, making money as a waitress. Nothing wrong with that. I used to work in a restaurant business, and this is where she was. But this is crushing. The debt is crushing. This is why I say student loans are evil. This is no joke. She had $85,000 of total debt. That includes a car and the vet bills and the cat bills and the hospital, all that stuff. But the interest that she's got here, that's coming primarily from the student loans. $91,000 of interest from student loans over time. It's horrible. So student loans are evil, right? So what do? Boom. So there's one best way to pay it off. And look, this program was a $350 a month program because that's what she could afford as a student. I know for a fact she's going to make more than $350 a month later on in life. I know once she gets that doctorate, she's going to be able to really, really hammer this program. But we don't want to go with hypotheticals. We want to go with guarantees. So this is her guaranteed program. We're going to save her $64,000 in debt. That's 2/3 of the interest that she's got. We're going to save her. At the end, if she wanted to, she's going to have $603,000 in cash in 40 years. She's going to have $1 million of life insurance. It's fully paid up. She's going to pay off those debts in the order that we talked about. Every one of those yellow years, she's going to pay off another debt. And here's the thing. If she wanted to, she could retire at 55. I have this program stopping at age 55. At age 55, she'll be able to start taking money out of the program, and she can do with it whatever she wants to do. I want you guys to pay attention to this. Do you see year 50 where she's 56 and 57 years old? In year 50, at age 56, she's got 431,000. At age 57, she's got 454,000. That program grew $23,000 over the course of the year. How much did she pay in? See that annual premium? Goose egg, zero. She made zero payments. So she just grew the death benefit, which grew from $685 to $691, $6,000. And she grew the cash value, which grew $23,000. That's the effect of compounded interest plus a dividend. So where do you go from here? Talk to whoever got you here. Have a conversation. If you are a 1099, there is no reason in the world why you shouldn't do one of these programs, especially considering by doing one of these programs, what I'm going to show you in just a second, you'll be able to capture a tremendous amount of cash for your retirement, and you're going to be able to triple or quadruple your retirement beyond what you have right now, depending on how many years you have. All right, so let's go ahead and stop for a second. Anybody have a question for me before I move on to the next segment? You all got it.
Not related to what you just covered.
Laureen, let's go Laureen first.
So did I hear that there is a program coming that will allow us to do debt-free life with like a husband and wife?
You can do that now.
Oh, you can?
Yeah, Mutual Trust Life is one of the carriers we have that will allow you to write a husband-wife policy.
And they're separate policies?
So you can do them separate or you can do them together. One would be depending on where there's a lot of moving parts. So it just depends on where they are financially, whether they want to have a rider or if they want to have a separate policy they can peel off that is a rider, or if they just want to start a term policy that's convertible to one of these programs. So yeah, and there's the illustration software. We have two different versions of the illustration software now. One version allows you to incorporate two separate policies that are both private banks, and all the other carriers do not do that yet. But I know that the new DFL software 2.0 is going to allow that as well. So all the best parts of what we have is coming in the new software. All right. Okay. Audrey, do you have a question?
Yes, I have a couple. They are like $200,000 in debt. They have just bought a home and they're interested in this program. So what would be their initial investment?
Yep. So there's way too many variables for me to answer that question. So okay. If you want to have a specific conversation about that, feel free to reach out to me offline and I'll be happy to help.
Okay. Right. Well, generally, what do people invest to begin with?
It depends on their debt.
Afford?
It depends on their debt load. So okay. The idea, okay. your initial version of these programs should be looking at what they're overspending, because this is okay. about redirecting inefficiently spent money. So if they've got 3 credit cards that are $50 each, but they're paying $150 each, that's $300 they're spending inefficiently.
Right.
So that would be redirecting the money into this program so they can capture that $300 instead of spending it one time and have it being gone forever.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. All right.
Thank you.
Yep. All right. Hold 1 second. All right. And I'm going to talk about taxes now for just a second. Let me get that up. All right. So for most people that are 1099s, that would be anybody who's in sales, real estate sales, anybody who makes money where you receive income based on your production. But whatever, anybody that's not a W-2, W-4 employee, this next piece is for you. And this is exactly why you should have a life insurance program structured as a DFL that you use as a private bank. This is for you, Jason. Okay. So where you get this, the thing that I'm looking at for most people when you start these programs is, okay, well, how much tax am I going to have to pay? And of course, if you're lucky, you're going to pay more and more tax each year because you're making more and more money. But that means that you should be spending or saving a significant amount of money for that rainy day. Some of the other programs that were out there say, like, put 1/3 of your income into an envelope and save it. But what I'm going to say is, instead of doing it that way, why don't you make that money work for you? Because even that envelope method that still works, the envelope method means that you're spending the money one time. And if you put the money into a DFL program, then you're going to be able to capture that money for the rest of your life and make it work for you for the rest of your life. So if I have to pay $10,000 in taxes, but I earn 4% with that, that means that I made $400 that year. And if I did it for 10 years and I left the money in there for 10 years, that means I made $4,000. And if I left it in there for 25 years, that means I paid zero. I used that money to generate my own tax income and pay for my own taxes. So there's a lot of different ways you can cut this, but the idea is that I want to put as much money into my private bank as I can. And this is a funding strategy for how to use your private bank. Now, look, you cannot use this as a primary source. You cannot use this as a primary source. If this is the only thing you're using your bank for, and this is the only source of money to fund your bank, it will fail, right? So you cannot, it has to be something that you're doing on top of a normal DFL program, all right? So here's how it works. So when you make money, you pay taxes and the money's gone forever. That's that whole concept of spending money inefficiently. How much have you lost? So this is taken from current tax year income tax brackets. So if you're single, made $100,000, you owe $24,000 in taxes. If you're married, make $200,000 as a couple, then you owe $48,000 in taxes. If you're the head of household, then you made $150,000, you owe $36,000 in taxes. In each of those scenarios, wherever you fall, however much money you made as a 1099, if you did not do this program with the DFL, then that money is wasted. It's gone forever. The IRS is off your back and they're not going to come hounding you, but you're still not spending the money efficiently. Hold on. So if we take, oh man, it's playing with me. It's playing with me, Jason. Got to move things around so I can see. All right, so if we use that money for a DFL program, then in the first year, we're going to capture a net gain of $21,600. Taxes are still going to be spent, still going to be paid. IRS is still happy, but I've got a net gain of $21,000. And that's based on the cost of the loan that we have to take and the interest we're going to earn in the first year. And then those other two numbers are for those other two programs. The idea is that I want to do this with regularity and I want to do this quarterly. I want to pay into my program monthly so that I can draw taxes out quarterly if I'm in a situation where I have to pay quarterly taxes. If I'm not in a situation to pay quarterly taxes and I'm still brand new and I'm only paying semi-annually or annual taxes, great. Then put the money in there and use it when you need it. Pull it when you need it. Okay. This is those numbers I was just talking about. This is the actual federal income tax rate bracket from the IRS for this year for 2021. This is how those numbers flesh out where I got them from. Everything is exactly as I'm showing you so far. The tax bracket on the left side, if you're a heavy hitter insurance agent producer and you're over that 209, that might cause you to pucker for a minute. Okay. So this is something I said just a minute ago. It requires a core debt-free life program large enough to absorb the basic support costs. What that means is you can't again, you cannot use this as a primary funding strategy. And that's that second bullet there. And when I look at how much money you should be pulling out and how much overfunding you should do, about 10% is the number. Because remember, when you put money into a DFL program, the money's there forever, but you can't pull all the money out. You can only pull, they say 95, I say 90. You should only pull 90. So that means if you're going to owe $1,000 in taxes, you should put in 1,100. That extra $100, that extra 10% more than what you need is going to give you that cushion that you need so that you'll be able to pull out, no matter what, you'll be able to pull out the amount of tax money that you need to pull. Okay. This is not something that can use for W-2, W-4s. This is something really reserved only for 1099 folks. And so if you make $300,000 a year, but 100,000 is made on 1099, then you should only be looking at doing this for the 1099 basis. You can certainly do more; it won't hurt you, but it's not going to affect you. You're not going to be able to use this on a W-2, W-4 basis as easily as you can as a 1099. Yeah, basic stuff. This is how the math is derived. You owe $36,000 a year. That means you owe $9,000 a quarter. That's where it comes to. So let's look at that first statement. To use the DFL tax capture program, we need to pay $9,900 into a program quarterly or $3,300 a month, as in the scenario that we're currently working on. This is extra money that goes on top of our base core policy. But if we do that, then that $9,900, then that money will be there when we need it. And we should do that realistically in monthly chunks. In most cases, in the case that I'm talking about for the particular carrier that I use for this, that carrier pays monthly dividends. So the faster I get the money in the program, the more money I'm going to pay monthly. Compound. They do monthly compounding. So the faster I get the money into the program, the more compounding I'm going to have over time. So the idea is you want to get the money in as quick as possible. So if for example, you know you're going to pay $20,000 in taxes this year, and you've got the money right now, put it all in the program on day one. Let it sit there and pull it out as you need it. That you're going to get the best result that way, because you're going to get the absolute highest rate of compounding on the monthly compound, and you're going to get potentially it's with the compounded growth, it's going to potentially make your dividend slightly larger at the end because you'll have more money in there for the dividend to be applied to. This is the scenario of a 42-year-old insurance broker that I'm using for this. And so part of this process, when you set these programs up, you have to use logic to determine how much money I'm going to need to put in here. So I know that if my DFL program required me to put in $28,000 a year as my maximum premium to capture my debt snowball, and I know that I'm going to pay $20,000 a year in taxes, that means I need to arrive at a PUA, a maximum annual PUA premium of 28 plus 20, which is 48,000. And that's exactly why this program was structured the way that it was. But this is part of that process. You need to think through it. You need to use logic, and you need to use realistic projections. That means not only using the carrier NAIC illustration like what you have right here, but you're also going to need to use whatever DMA, DMR, DFL 1.0 illustration to look at what that debt snowball is going to be in year 2 or year 3 or year 4 to figure out how much you're going to need to capture. Okay. One of the key tenets here is that we know we're doing dollar cycling. We know that we're going to use that same dollar over and over. I know I'm going to be putting money in every month because it's my core DFL program. And I know that I'm going to be pulling out loans with regularity to go pay off those debts so I can make my debt snowball bigger. When you have that scenario going on, and this is the logic about why you cannot use tax funding as a primary funding strategy, the core policy costs, the core policy premium costs are paying the management and fees associated with the program. That PUA extra that you're putting in is 100% extra, which is another thing. When you structure these programs, you got to be careful and make sure that A, you're going to have enough money to capture the taxes, but also B, the 100% of the taxes are being credited as PUA. So that's why, another reason why you can't use that as your taxes as a funding strategy. So let's move on. All right. So this is what happens when we do this as the scenario we're looking at. The earnings in year one, that's just based on putting my money, my $20,000, that's my income from the $20,000 based on the guaranteed interest rate. In the second year, it goes up. It's more than double. I'm putting in the same amount of money each year, but it's more than double. The third year, it's more than triple. Okay. And that's the nature of the effect of compounded interest. I have not and do not, in any of these illustrations that I do, determine what the dividend is going to be. So that number does not include the dividend. So the dividend will be higher than that. The dividend is going to be, so the numbers can be better than that. So I spent in this scenario $18,000 on core policy costs. What does that mean? That means I had a $1,500 policy, $1,500 a month. That was my core policy. And over the course of 5 years, just by paying my taxes into the program, the amount of PUA I have in this bank is $198,000 higher. So let me let that sink in for a second. So what did I do? I did my DFL program. I dollar cycled. I paid off a lot of my debts. I used a tax funding strategy to increase the rate at which my PUA is building. And simply by paying my taxes into my DFL program first, and then pulling the money out and paying my taxes, I've increased the amount of money I've got in my retirement program by $198,000. Anybody have a holy cow moment? Okay. So in the end, what that means is I'm going to have a minimum net gain, because I'm still going to have a debt. I'm still going to have, I put the money in and I'm taking the loan out. So I'm still going to have a debt, but my net gain in 5 years is $70,000. So here's the thing. You can do what you're doing now and pay your taxes out of your checking account and make the IRS happy and have zero left over to show for it. Or you can start a DFL program and do what you're doing now, pay your taxes into the program, then pay the IRS, make the IRS happy, and have $70,000 at the end of 5 years. What do you want to do? That should be the end.
That was a stupid question, Scott.
I know. I never said I was smart.
I didn't say you weren't smart. I said it was a stupid question.
Right?
I already know you're smart.
These are calculated results. Of course, we haven't been doing this for 15 or 20 years, so I can't prove that this is the way it's going to work. But what I can say is math, and math doesn't lie. And
well, we got 100 years of record. 100 years of record that, it ought to work this way.
Right. Well, math is math,
Yeah.
it's a universal language that it's never wrong. That's the end. So that's how you do taxes. Do you hear my tax chihuahua in the back? That means my wife is feeding my tax chihuahuas. Right on. All right. Anybody have any questions about that? Come on, Jason.
I can't think of now. I'm still kind of amazed. I'm just trying to figure out, but I guess that's be more front loading your taxes, like you said, instead of paying it at the end. You're being proactive and putting that money away.
So some of the key problems with this is the same key problem with anything financial. It requires discipline. So you have to pay your taxes into the program every month. You see your checks, what goes into your account, and where it comes from. If you got 10,000 and that 33% rate is fine. If you got 10,000, great. Then, if you made $3,300 in taxes, put $3,300 in there. And the worst problem you could have from that is that you overpaid yourself on the taxes. Oh no, right? I've got more money in the program than I need. Oh no.
Scott, this is Dennis.
Hey, Dennis.
Hi.
Hey, buddy. I
Hi.
haven't seen you in a while. How you been?
Yeah, good. And you?
Fantastic. What can I do for you?
All right. Can you adjust an existing program to take advantage of this approach?
Maybe, depends on how much the PUA bank was built for.
Okay,
Yeah, you have to, this is why in the beginning, if you're going to be utilizing this structure or this financing mechanism, you definitely need to make sure you plan for it, because
Okay.
you'll run into that program pretty quickly. I mean, if you've done enough of these illustrations, you see how big the debt snowball gets and how quickly it happens. And you will quickly maximize your PUA. And then it's not a big deal. You just start another one.
yeah, that's true. Thanks.
Yep. Anybody else?
Is this going to be on YouTube?
Yes.
Okay.
Going once. Going twice. Thanks for coming. Everybody have a great night.
Thanksgiving, everybody.
Yep. And we'll see
Thank
you out there
you.
in debt-free life land. Go help a family. Go save some money. Fix your retirement. Bye.
Thank you.